Howdy folks, it's Glenn with the almost world-famous Cactus Atlas standing on the streets of Tombstone, Arizona. I don't think it would be right as a Arizona resident not to take you guys on a tour of this historic fun town, so let's go check it out. So no trip to Tombstone would be complete without a visit to the OK Corral, so let's go hop inside and see what that's all about. All right, here we go. Admission has been paid. And let's see what we can find here. So these are the remains of the original OK Corral. But interestingly, this isn't where the actual gunfight took place. It took place in a lot back this way. And we'll go check that out in a second. But lots of cool stuff on display out here to see. I'm not really educated enough to know if this was real, like this adobe here. It sure does look old and real, doesn't it? But, whoa, that's definitely real. They forgot about that guy. It's a cowboy bathtub.
Howdy, partner.
These buggies look pretty cool and real. I don't know if they redid the seats and stuff. They look pretty new, but regardless, signs say they're original. I'm gonna tell you guys a quick secret as a native Arizonan. I'm not gonna knock Tombstone because I love it. I would say it's one of my favorite stories about the Old West, one of my favorite towns of the Old West, but it's very touristy. And a lot of the original town burnt down, so what's left today I think is mainly a tourist trap. There's some real buildings and some real history as I'm showing you here, but I always kind of take things with a grain of salt when I don't know, so I'm not gonna make any grandiose claims as to what's real and what's not. I somehow lucked out and got this whole OK Corral to myself. There is like a shootout show where they'll kind of recreate the shootout in other like Old West shootouts. It's a lot of fun. I don't know, the next showing is not for another hour, so I don't know if I'm gonna stick around for that. Mainly came here to show you the actual site of the shootout at the OK Corral. Oh, so neat. It's been a long time since I've been here, but there it is, folks. The actual representation of the shootout at the OK Corral. Look at this. I don't recall those moving like that back in the day. Now the one thing I want you to note is, look how close they were together. They were really standing that close. So this wasn't like you see portrayed in the movies where they had a lot of distance between them. They were actually right up in each other's faces when this happened. It's pretty scary, imagine that. I didn't even notice the names on the fence. So if we go by order, the one in the very back there is Tom McLaury. And then you got Frank McLaury, two brothers, followed by Ike Clanton, who didn't die in the battle, by the way, and then Billy Clanton, who did die. So the three that died would be this guy, Billy, and the two McLaury brothers, and Ike ran off like a little wimp. According to this rendition, that would be Wyatt Earp right there, followed by his brother Virgil, followed by his other brother Morgan, who would later die here in Tombstone. And I was correct. Doc Holliday there with the, I think that was called a street howitzer, wasn't it? Like a shotgun. But man, if we could only be back here in 1881 to just witness this like flies on the wall next to CS Fly's studio. Whoa, that guy just looked at me. You see that? One of the McLaury brothers looked. We'll go see more about these guys in a little bit before we're done today, but shootout at the OK Corral. And I just realized we actually also paid to get access to CS Fly's studio, or I believe the recreation thereof. See if there's any cool stuff in here, like old pictures. Oh wow, look at this. So yeah, CS Fly made his rounds. You can see he took photos of the Apache. That would be Geronimo. And you know, Ed Schifflin, the founder of Tombstone. Lots of landscape photos. Tombstone before 1882. This is a view down Allen Street before the big fire. This is amazing. Wow, and here's a bunch of photography from C.S. Fly of the Apache. Something I'm starting to read about and get more into. Wow, this is pretty brutal. A rare photograph of an Apache woman whose nose was cut off for adultery. Look at this. This is another photo of Geronimo mounted on horseback. That looks like Geronimo there to me. And according to this sign, this was Doc Holliday's room here at the C.S. Fly boarding house. Probably a recreation if the original building burnt down. But it's right outside, and I think that's a rendition of Big Nose Kate watching the shootout at the OK Corral. Right outside the window there. Either this wasn't open or not here when I came last time, or I just missed it. This is fantastic. This might be my favorite thing here in the OK Gallery that I paid admission for so far. Because I've seen the shootout area before, but many times. Not my first time here in Tombstone, but yeah, really cool. This here is an example of a crib, which would be kind of like lower level prostitutes would rent these for, said, between $8 and $20 a week, and then they would conduct their business in here. So this is exhibit about soiled doves and the prostitutes of that time. Something I really want to do a separate episode on. And I've heard this is a really good book. I've been recommended that book, Soiled Doves, now a couple times by different people. So one of these days, when we have time, we're gonna dive into that. So some things that I really dig about Tombstone is you see a lot of people like dressed up for the time, like cowboys and lawmen. Really cool. But as you can kind of see as I'm walking around here, very touristy. Although there are some real gems buried in amongst all of this stuff too. Stuff that I'm trying to show you guys today. One thing that I do love is how they block off this street so you don't have to worry about watching out for cars. And it really does have that feel. You know, I feel like I'm in an old west town, so that's one of the cool things about Tombstone. So to me, no trip to Tombstone is complete without visiting the old Birdcage Theater. This is one of the original buildings here, the real deal. And there's some really cool stuff in there. Today it's more of a museum than anything, but this probably is my favorite thing to do here in Tombstone. Birdcage Theater. Once again, I've done a full video on this place before, so I'm not going to go as in depth as I have in the past, but let's go take a peek around and I'll catch you guys up that haven't seen that before. So this is the same theater that you might remember from the really famous movie Tombstone with Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell. Like you might remember a scene where the cowboys are in here shooting their guns up in the air and hooting and hollering, shooting at the stage. Well, this was the inspiration for that scene. This is the building that they were in the movie.
This is so much fun. We haven't been to a show since years.
And another really cool thing, like you saw in the movie, right here are real bullet holes from drunk cowboys. Apparently Curly Bill got his haircut in this very chair here. Wow, you can see a lot of the original wallpaper. when you enter the lobby, they tell you some information. I think they said there's like 140 some odd bullet holes strewn around the place, several of which are out front. They also mentioned that if you were here back in the day, I don't think this wall would have existed. You would have seen straight back into the theater back then, not that lobby, but it's still so amazing because, I mean, there's so many cool, like, authentic things in here. The building being one of them, one of the few buildings that survived the big fires here in Tombstone. So this is one of my favorite views. Here in the Birdcage is standing on the stairway to the right of the stage. You can see the piano down below, and we're looking down below the theater. So imagine drunken cowboys shooting their guns up in the air, shooting the stage right below me, right there. If you were a performer back then, that had to be thrilling, if not absolutely terrifying. And this whole thing is just so amazing. Just being in the building is good enough for me, and walking on the original floors, as they tell you out front. All of this wooden floor is real. It's not any kind of reconstruction. It's very rickety, and it smells mildewy and old in here. I love it. And I keep looking back out into the theater looking for ghosts. But don't worry, the tour's not over yet. This room behind the stage is one of my favorites too, because of one thing back here called the Black Mariah. It's a hearse, representative of the type that would have taken bodies to the Boothill cemetery back in the day. This thing apparently is worth $2 million in today's dollars. If you can believe that. I can believe it. Another cool fact about this, or at least what this is telling me, is that this thing hauled everybody that died to Boothill Cemetery except for 6 people. So quite a few people were hauled to the cemetery in this thing, if that's true. So that's really cool. And here are some stairs that go up to those rooms up here in the balcony, but that's off limits, unfortunately. So this guy will not let me pass. I personally think the tour gets better downstairs. That's my favorite spot. Well, I shouldn't say that. That outdoor theater is amazing. The Black Mariah is amazing, but there's something about the downstairs. If you've never seen it, come with me to the next phase of the tour. So this here is supposed to be the site of the longest ongoing poker game known. And many people played down here, many famous people. I heard Adolphus Bush was a name that played down here. I'm sure the Earps played down here. Who knows, but all of this is original stuff, they say, and that mirror apparently is hung in the same place since the 1800s. Or was it this mirror? I think it's both mirrors? I don't know. So yeah, according to this sign, this tells you what's original here in this area. So I was correct, I think, about the mirror. So it claims that that mirror and that mirror are both originals and were hanging in that same spot. They didn't move them. And there's a couple other pieces of equipment here. And it says that's the original service bar that attended to the players down here at this poker game. And also the old whiskey and wine bottles and the broken glasses are all original from the room during the 1880s. So all of that stuff you see there is reported to be original. Howdy, partner. I'd like an ice cold sarsaparilla, please. Well, you don't got sarsaparilla?
Nope.
Oh well. Thanks anyway. I'll be moving on now. And another really neat thing here are these are old rooms that you can see that are still furnished, where the ladies of the night would have worked. Look at the old wallpaper. Really cool. And one more to take a look at. I think this one's the cooler of the two. This is a really cool view too. You can see that's out in the theater where we just were. We can kind of peek and look it out on the floor towards the entrance of the building, but they have the cellar over here that I love peeking my nose in here and just smelling. It smells so old and musty. And that crap in there is so ancient. Look at all those barrels. I think up front they said they still have barrels here with wine from back in the day. So I don't know if those are the barrels they were talking about, but I know one time I saw a hand grenade down here too last time I was here. I'm sure it wasn't a real one, or live. But I don't see it anymore, so someone's been in here since then. Well, yeah, it's time to move on to the next destination here in Tombstone, but yeah, the Birdcage Theater is a must-do when you come here. So this is an interesting spot too, because this is where Curly Bill Brocious killed Marshal Fred White. You see that in the movie Tombstone. I think this is before the building was here, but this is apparently the location. So one other cool thing that I don't think a lot of people know about here is another really cool historic attraction, kind of in this inconspicuous building that borders Tough Nut Street off of the main drag here. It is the Rosebush Museum, and I want to show you this. This is amazing. So aside from the main attraction we've come to see here, this is a historic building, probably somewhat restored, I'm guessing, but you can see there's some cool artifacts in here, like that oil painting was from 1895, or before 1895. And you could maybe get a sense of what a Victorian residence was like. Wow, and this is a beautiful, beautiful room here. Hey, look, there's a cat, a real cat, right? Is that a real cat? I think it is. Out here is the real reason we came here today. Not sure if you guys recognize what this is, this growth above me. It's quite an amazing story. This is an actual rose bush, or rose tree, I don't know the appropriate term, from the 1800s, I think the largest one in the world. Look at this thing. I mean, all of this is the same plant. All of the stuff around me. Look how large that is. This thing thrived. All right, my 6'2" stature doesn't do too well in here. I gotta crouch down, but can you believe that this is from the 1800s, this plant? It still lives today. I'm touching a living being that was here most likely in the days of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. And every April still, this thing will bloom. 8,000 square feet, they say, of white flowers. Very fragrant, I'm being told, very beautiful. Never had time to come see it, but I was told it happens in April. So if you want to see that, whether you're into the Old West or not, I mean, this is something special. Be sure to come up here on this like viewing area when you come here to get a good view of this, just to see the immense size of it. I mean, I can't even see over this thing, but just imagine this thing in full bloom. Wow. Imagine owning a clipping and growing it. A rose bush from the 1800s transported here from Scotland. Doesn't get cooler than that to me. Let's go back into the darkness under the shady canopy of this enormous, 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 I can't describe to you how big this is other than telling you it's 8,000 square feet. But I can't get over this. This is one of my favorite things here, if not my favorite. All right, it is correct. You can actually pick one of these trimmings from the rose bush and buy one, and for the cheap price of $30 to have trimmings from a rose bush from the 1800s. So, Amy, I was thinking this could be a cool Christmas present. I don't know how to wrap this up, and I don't know how I would hide this from you since you edit all the videos. So this will just be a gift from the trip. So sweet, I actually bought a piece of that rose bush. This is clippings from that rose bush from the 1800s, and I'm bringing it home to Amy, and we're gonna figure out how to plant this thing in my backyard, and we're gonna grow that son of a gun as big as it was in there. Although we probably won't live long enough to see that. Gonna continue the tradition. So probably needless to say, no trip to Tombstone is complete without a trip to Boothill Graveyard. So isn't a graveyard the one that's supposed to be next to a church, and a cemetery would be the one that's not next to a church, or do I have that backwards? I can never keep that straight. Here I am standing in the middle of Boothill Graveyard, or cemetery. I don't know which is the right, but it's kind of funny because the very nice and welcoming lady working in there was asking me, oh, do you You hoping to catch something on there referring to paranormal stuff? And of course I would love to, but little does she know she's dealing with the biggest skeptic in Arizona. But I didn't tell her that. So I don't really want to go into overwhelming detail about this cemetery, as I made a video a couple years ago on this place, and I cover a lot of the particulars in that. So if you want to dig in deep, I would recommend checking out that other video of ours, and we'll put a link in the description down below. But there are a few notable folks that I always like to stop and say hello to, so let's do that. And if you watch our other video, you'll just see grave after grave of people murdered and shot according to these headstones. So if we're going to assume that this is based on historical records, it's very violent, a very violent time. So don't think for a second though that these are original headstones, because they are not. They're reproductions, and they're not even sure that all of these spots mark the exact locations of the graves here, because this whole cemetery fell into a massive state of disrepair at one point. So they had to kind of use records to figure out who is who, but most likely this is pretty accurate. Like Freddie Fuss here, died in 1882. So here's the one that I always like to come see. Right here. Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44, no less, no more. So Mr. Moore here, you guys think this is real? It's a really weird looking headstone, like 3 times taller than the rest. I'm gonna bet it's not real. I really don't believe in this. I think it was something that was probably put here by a previous owner of this land. And I was talking to, I assume, the docent that worked in the courthouse, and I started to inquire this time around, like, how do you get access to the records to find out? I think I'm gonna do a whole episode to get to the bottom of this once and for all. I know a lot of you are gonna hate my guts for that, but we gotta seek the truth, folks. So you guys remember when we were standing in front of the Birdcage Theater and I showed you that sign that Marshal Fred Wyatt was shot by Curly Bill in that approximate location? Well, here's Marshal Fred Wyatt's grave. Died in 1880. You see people throw a lot of money and other things here on the grave, but that's one of my favorite ones to come visit. And here's another kind of oddly placed one. Here lies George Johnson, hanged by mistake. He was right, we was wrong, but we strung him up and now he's gone. So for me, this is likely another one that seems like a candidate for a fabrication. Him and Lester Moore, I don't know, like, you know, we're gonna have to dig deep one day if we're gonna really get to the bottom of this. It just sticks out, doesn't it? But if those are real epitaphs, those are the best of all time. All right, so right here behind me are arguably Tombstone's most famous residents, the victims of the shootout at the OK Corral. You got Billy Clanton, Frank McLaury, and his brother Tom McLaury. And note that they all died on October 26, 1881, the day of the shootout at the OK Corral. Awesome. Not for these guys, but being able to tie those ends in history. I love seeing stuff like this. I just had to stop too and take a look at the sun setting on, I believe those are the Dragoon Mountains off in the distance there. That's a beautiful sight, isn't it? That these residents of Boothill Graveyard get to enjoy on most evenings out here in the desert. Howdy folks, it's the next morning. I'm here on Allen Street in Tombstone, pre-dawn. Wanted to come out and see what it's like since I've never been here after dark, and I figured all the drunks have gone home by now, so let's take a stroll up Allen Street and see what's up. So I've never seen Tombstone or Allen Street for that matter in this light. Not a single person roaming the streets. I figure too we can come out here and enjoy some Christmas lights as they just started decorating the town, it looks like. I'm sitting here walking down the street pondering the olden times and all the old folks dressed in their Victorian attire wandering up and down a maze of wooden buildings that no longer exist today. But nonetheless, in this early morning, pre-dawn darkness, you can kind of trick your mind into that nothing's changed. And I've teleported myself back in time. I think this is a good place to call it. I don't think I could end it on a better note than here. Tombstone, pre-dawn. Tombstone, Arizona. It's not all about the junk peddling, the $15 admissions to this or that, the drinking and methamphetamine. There's also a rich history to find here if you're willing to dig for it.